Hi, I'm Josh Bayless from CatholicMove.com. That's CatholicMOV.com. And I help men become better husbands, fathers, and friends. And today I want to encourage you to sign up to my email list. And I'll send you a Catholic Men of Valor prayer book for free just by signing up. You can do that in the opt-in box below this post. Now, have you ever been to church and you look around and maybe some people are sleeping, maybe some people are not engaged with the Mass, maybe they're looking at their phone or talking to one another, or just not paying attention, not being reverent during Mass? Do you ever wonder what to tell these people, and maybe how to do it in a way that isn't you just pointing your finger and lecturing at them like we would like to do, right? But I believe that there is a way to do that that can help them discover that themselves. And I read this story. It's actually the prologue of this book called Rediscovering Catholicism by Matthew Kelly. And it talked about a boy. And I'm not going to go into the story. I actually found a recording of that I'm going to tag on to the end of this video. So stay tuned. You'll see Matthew Kelly. And don't forget to sign up to my email list. So stay tuned.
Imagine this. You're driving home from work next Monday after a long day and you tune in your radio and you hear a little blurb about a village in India where 4 people have suddenly been found dead from a flu that's never been seen before. By Monday morning when you get up, it's the lead story, only now it's not 4 people dead but 30,000 people dead. And it's spreading. Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran, Iraq, Turkey, Northern Africa, and everybody's wondering how will we ever contain this thing. France closes its borders, but it's too late. 2 men are admitted to a hospital in Paris with the mystery flu. Panic strikes. As best they can tell, after you contract it, you have it for a week before you even know it. Then 4 days of unbelievable symptoms, and then you just die. Britain closes its borders, but it's too late. The disease breaks out in Southampton, Liverpool, and London. And on Tuesday morning, the President of the United States makes the following announcement. Due to a national security risk, all flights to and from America have been cancelled. If you have loved ones overseas, I'm sorry, they cannot come home until we find a cure for this thing. America's plunged into an unbelievable fear. People are saying it's the scourge of God. People are saying it's the end. And on Tuesday night, you're at church for a meeting when somebody runs in from the parking lot screaming, "Turn on a radio." And while everyone listens to a small radio, the announcement is made that 2 women are lying in a hospital in New York City dying of the mystery flu. It's come to America. Within hours, the disease seems to envelop the country. People are working around the clock trying to find an antidote, but nothing works. The disease breaks out in California, Oregon, Arizona, Florida, Massachusetts. It's as though it's just sweeping in from the borders. Then all of a sudden the news comes out. The code has been broken. Cure can be found. Vaccine can be made. But it's going to take the blood of somebody who has not been infected. And so you and I were asked to go to our nearest hospital and have our blood tested. By the time we get down there, it's late Friday night. They've got long lines of people, doctors and nurses coming out, taking blood, putting labels on it. They take your blood. They say, wait here in the parking lot. You stand around with your family and your friends, scared, waiting, wondering what on earth is going on here. Suddenly, a young man comes racing out of the hospital. He's screaming a name, waving a clipboard. You don't hear him at first. He screams the name again. You don't hear him again. But then your son tugs at your jacket and says, that's me. That's my name they're calling. Before you know it, they've grabbed your son, they're racing him into the hospital. You run after him, you say, wait a minute, that's my son. They say, it's okay. We think he's got the right blood type. We just need to check one more time to make sure he doesn't have the disease. 5 minutes later, out come the doctors and nurses, crying, hugging one another. Some of them are even laughing. It's the first time you've seen anybody laugh in almost a week. And an old gray-haired doctor walks up to you and your spouse and says, thank you. Your son's blood, it's clean, it's pure, it's perfect. We can use it to make a vaccine. As the news begins to spread, people begin to scream and pray and laugh and cry. Then the old doctor pulls you aside again and he says, we're going to need you to sign a consent form. You say, what do you mean? He says, well, we didn't realize it would be a child. Seems simple enough, so you begin to sign the form, but as you do, you realize that the box for the number of pints of blood to be taken is empty. So you stop signing, you look up at the old doctor and you say, how many pints? And that is when the old doctor's smile fades. He says, we had no idea it would be a child, we weren't ready for that. You say to him again, how many pints? He says, we're going to need it all. You say, well, he's my only son. Doctor grabs you by the shoulders and he shakes you. He says, we're talking about the whole world here. Do you understand that? You say, but can't you give him a transfusion? He says, if we had clean blood, we would. But we don't. Please, will you sign the form? Well, what would you do? Well, you sign the form because you realize it's the only thing to do. And then he says to you, would you like to have a moment with your son before we get started? Could you walk back into that hospital room where your son sits there saying, Mommy, Daddy, what's going on? Could you tell your son you love him? And then when the doctors and nurses come back and say, I'm sorry, we've got to get started, people all over the world are dying, could you just leave and just turn around and walk out where your son sits there saying, Mommy, Daddy, what's going on? Where are you going? Why are you leaving? Why have you abandoned me? And then next week, next Sunday, when they hold a ceremony to honor your son and his phenomenal contributions, some people don't bother to come because they got better things to do. A whole bunch of people come with a pretentious smile and just pretend to care, but they're really more interested in the whole social aspect of it all. And another bunch of people sit around and say, this is pretty boring. Wouldn't you want to stand up and say, excuse me, I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but my son, he died so you could have the extraordinary life you have. Maybe that's what God wants to say.